Welcome back to the Convo Couch, everyone. I am your co-host live from Managua, Nicaragua. Pasta Jardula is here.
God, Pasta. You outdid yourself with annoyance. Hey guys, what's up? You guys saw my stream last night, and Johnny didn't tell me that his phone was dying, and the whole thing shut off, so I didn't get to finish what I was saying.
Bam.
And I'm a little salty about that, but we're back. This is the first together live stream we've done in about 6 days.
Yeah, but you have to say your name, because if we ever convert these down to audio, they have to know that you're Fiorella.
They know, fams, you know who I am. Fiorella. My name is Fiorella
Isabel. And Jonny Sue is on the ones and twos. I mean, this is a great setup. Oh my God, look how friggin' clean we look. Wow, how does my face look, fam? Do I look good? My hair? I put a little conditioner.
Look good, fam. Remember, you're the
Thank
beautiful
you.
one.
I know, I'm the good-looking, funny one of the Convo Couch. You are the brains. Johnny is the master. And we are here to give you a great show. Fam, no kidding aside. I mean, I know I went over the top over here. No cap. But we have had just an incredible, life-changing, amazing experience here in Managua, here in Nicaragua. Your thoughts right off the bat.
First of all, did we make you a socialist?
I don't want to kind of say that live on camera and stuff like that, but I got to tell you that my socialism tendencies, they are definitely coming out when you come to Managua and you see what's going on. When you come to Nicaragua, we were in Bilwi, the northeast part. I mean, it really is. You just can't help the Caribbean North. You just can't help to root for these people here that really are just, they want their own autonomy. They want to be away from the U.S. They don't want to be controlled.
Right.
So you can't help but root for them. Sometimes.
Of course. I mean, they are under no circumstances. And like the U.S. is under no circumstances entitled to control any country, to have an opinion on any country. But this is what they do. They try to exert global dominance over so many countries. And Nicaragua is the second poorest country in Central America. And I honestly feel that there's a lot of, foreign policy behind this hyper focus on Nicaragua and Daniel Ortega, but also the fact that Nicaraguans' lives have improved tangibly. Even people who don't necessarily love him have said, hey, you can cite every single thing that has improved, right? From the roads, from the literacy rate, from the building of schools, healthcare, all of that has improved. So we're going to be talking about that more. I talked about it yesterday for a little bit, but we're going to go through some of the things we covered and some of the things we saw, and some of the, we're going to shout out some of the journalists that attended. So many great journalists, so many great activists, organizers, election observers.
Yeah, and just mad love to the people of Nicaragua. I mean, wow. They have my hearts, and let's just get into it because, let me just say this right off the bat, just the macro. If America had the type of elections that we have here in Nicaragua, the Congress would look totally different, the Senate would look totally different, and we wouldn't have to be choosing between a Donald Trump or a Joe Biden. The landscape would be completely changed, and it would be in the hands, the power would be with the people, not the corporations and not the fascist state that we are controlled by every day. Right. So I got the first one up for you, fam. Let's get rolling.
All right, so this is a little down. So the OAS has recently released this statement that they're going to actually, they're advocating for the annulment of these elections. They're saying these elections were not fair, that they were fraudulent, but we're going to show you how they were fair.
Before they even started this, they weren't fair.
But the OAS in particular, we know is the CIA front. So I said I'm gonna try to translate this whole thing, right? So the international community must demand the annulment of these elections on Sunday, November 7th, and make a call to us to have a new electoral process with guaranteed electoral observation and true electoral competence. Nicaragua needs to implement the genuine and authentic. Nicaragua needs to implement recommendations that have been made in international instances to obtain genuine and authentic elections that allow restoring liberties and the right of the people uniquely through this recuperates democracy that has been lost. So they're saying that these elections were not democratic. They're saying that these elections were that Nicaragua needs to have democracy in their elections. This is what they always go to, you know, the whole democracy. They weren't democratic. They didn't represent people. One of the allegations that they've been talking about, and I know Ben Norton did an article recently on it, how some of the people who used to be part of this Sandinistas FSLN party have turned against them. But there's a lot more nuance to that. There's a lot of division, and the CIA and these state agencies are exploiting that. And a lot of these people are not really part of the FSLN. So I would recommend reading Ben Norton's article on that. Yeah. But you know, we're just going to go through the whole process, our whole experience of what we saw. Yeah. And basically, I said U.S. allies and propagandists are lying about the election in Nicaragua. I was in the region of Bilwi today. That's where we all went, which is about an hour of a plane ride, 8 hours, I think, to get to the Caribbean North. And I said the voting went on without a hitch, in an organized, efficient, and secure manner. There was no coercion, but excitement. Something lacking in the States, because as you can see, you can just show the video, Johnny, there's no dialogue, but as you can see, when you walk in that picture, you'll see computers, right? And so what they do is when people walk in, there's computers there that look up, that can look up your identity, your polling location, because they have the whole polling center divided into jaulas, so different rooms.
Juntas.
Oh, sorry, juntas. Okay. And it's called, and it's each junta has its own group of people that oversee the election, and we went to the largest one as well in Bilwi.
Yeah. Just to kind of give you a little idea of what's going on, we arrived in Managua on Thursday night. On Friday, there was a dinner with a lot of people from the foreign ministry and a lot of people. Actually, the foreign minister was talking himself. He came there to meet aloud with us. And one of the heads of the foreign ministry came over to us and said, hey, I apologize for your issues that you had with the cameras at the airport. We're going to ask you guys first. There's going to be a group of 10 that we're sending out to Bilwi, and we're going to offer to you first, which is about an hour plane ride to the northeast part of Nicaragua.
Right, and they call it the Caribbean North.
Exactly, and it's an autonomous zone, indigenous people, the whole 9 yards. And we were flown out there on a Friday. We got to meet with all the election officials out there.
That was awesome.
It was amazing. We had this meeting. We hit them with so many questions.
They broke it down really well.
Convo Couch style, though, going after, what about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? And we're like looking at each other like, oh my God, can you imagine if we had a type of election like this in the United States? Right. Holy cow, everything from the registration process to the voting, the way they have all the parties in the room, different parties in the room. So there's a lot of accountability, and there's different parties watching each other. Really, that increases the integrity of an election, to the counting process with everybody in the room. Right. So we saw, and the efficiency, man, it was, bam, man, need I say, it's an old Italian saying, you can vote faster than shit through a tin horn. It was whoosh, in and out. It was just great.
Yeah, so the whole thing is, you know, with the OAS wanting to annul these elections, previously the Joe Biden administration had also made a statement calling this election a pantomime election. I'm not going to read it, but basically they were talking about how they rejected independent media. They're calling corporate media independent media, for one, and independent media are the only ones that actually went there, the ones that attended. And of course, they're not going to allow the OAS in there, because we've seen what the OAS has done in Venezuela, what they've tried to do in Bolivia. And this, why would you allow a CIA front to come into election? If I were the government, no, you don't allow the attempt, the organization that is a front to overthrow a democratically elected leader that has a history of doing this, right? And so why would you allow that? And so the people that actually showed up and went were all independent media, because they wanted to see what was actually happening and report back. And independent media that is really honest and has actually, you know, deals with this sort of imperialist coverage, but also us in particular, we deal with the election. So it was extremely awesome just having everybody around us who knows, you know, who also is on the same side when it comes to anti-imperialism, but then also look at these elections and find some of the election integrity people that were also there that went to Venezuela and that have done this before. So it was really cool.
Yeah.
And you have a couple videos of me. I don't know.
Accusations news.
I guess my take on Joe Biden's stupid statement.
You want this one here?
The video.
Yes.
The Kaswachan.
You don't want
We kind of went over it, kind of.
statement by Joe
Biden? Yeah. Oh, you didn't show it? Oh, okay, you can show it. I was kind of talking about it.
We were just talking about right now the pantomime election stuff. So yeah.
Oh, another thing I want to mention about the pantomime too is that they were talking about media and journalists' rights, and they're currently prosecuting the Biden administration. The State Department are currently prosecuting Julian Assange. They're trying to extradite him. So how dare they talk about the having journalists and rights when they're incarcerating somebody who's an Australian citizen for exposing war crimes, and also not to mention the fact, which we're going to go over soon, is our sham elections. We have the worst.
That's what makes me laugh like crazy,
in modern history.
Yeah, I mean, it's hysterical. Like, you're going to sit. These elections are pantomime elections. I'm like, are you kidding me, dude? Ours are just a joke. We have the biggest joke of elections, where a third world nation can kick our friggin' butts.
And it's not just this one. So many other third world countries conduct better elections. Yeah. I mean, every single third world country that I've been to conducts better elections, right? And so it's just kind of like, with our computers and our proprietary software and all of that bullshit, and the fact that we can't ask questions, now it's, you're a right winger if you question any sort of election fraud, because they did that on purpose. Yeah. And so now, just comparing these two elections is just night and day. Yeah. So you have the video. Let's hear what I said. This is from Camila from Kaswachan News. She interviewed me.
We're here with Fiorella of the Convo Couch, and she is accredited to accompany the elections here in Nicaragua today. So a statement was released by President Joe Biden, an interventionist statement that was obviously pre-planned, scheduled, and it went out just at the close of the voting day. And it says that the election that was scheduled here was orchestrated and was a pantomime election. What do you think of that statement?
Considering that we were in Bilwi while the New York Times was lying and producing propaganda pieces saying that they were closing poll centers, naming some of the polling centers and locations where we were at, and telling the people that they were being closed while we were seeing the process go around in a very structured, organized, and fair way. People had to vote in less than 10 minutes. People were able to find their names via computer, via online, or via papers. It was a very smooth process, and I saw zero forcing or influencing of people. There were political, what they call fiscales, observers of each party, and it was a very, very quick process. I mean, compared to the United States, that has a very confusing process where the vast majority of Americans don't trust and have faith in the elections, because we have electronic voting machines, proprietary software. We have people claiming that both parties rig elections. So it's very rich of Joe Biden to call this a pantomime election when the United States has some of the worst elections. And of course, we know Venezuela is a gold standard, and they constantly talk about how unjust Venezuela's elections are. So to me, this is another attempt to really create a narrative that that this country, Nicaragua, has unfair elections in order to manipulate the public image in America to oust a very actual democratic government, something that we lack in the United States.
All right, guys. So basically, pretty much what I said. It's just the audacity, the hypocrisy of the Biden administration to really say anything about Nicaragua's elections after the 2008 failed attempted coup launched by the United States, the CIA, and their NATO allies. I mean, this is just common U.S. empire at play. And I think it's important to really understand these elections, because there's so much breaking and mind blowing that we're going to expose like throughout explaining these elections, because a lot of people assume that Nicaragua is, you know, a communist type of socialist, super lefty. But what you have to understand is that the people of Nicaragua are all very diverse, and they have different opinions, and they all, they're not necessarily what we would consider to be left in America. So there are a couple things that are different about them. And yeah, so I know we haven't live streamed in a while. There's usually way more people than there are now.
But there's Nicaragua in the title right now. Nicaragua is getting suppressed and shadow banned.
There's a lot of people on too.
Yeah, they shut down journalists over here left and right, ridiculously. Yeah. So I think that a lot of it, the fact that we have Nicaragua in the title, but we're not going to back down. We're going to bring you guys the truth. So please do us a favor, like, share, subscribe, the whole 9 yards. It's really, really important. Like she said, there is a lot of people live, a lot of our friends and warriors right now, but we're here live in Nicaragua, and this is a very important show. And if you don't watch it now, tell your friends to watch it later.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this issue really, U.S. imperialism encompasses so much more than any sort of, you know, YouTube warfare and you know, just talking about other, you know, independent media people. Guys, like, we need to understand U.S. imperialism before it strikes again, because this is a country that we as anti-imperialists want to protect from the wrath of the U.S. And the way things are done here are so efficient. So we already played the video, so let's continue. Okay.
We're here with Fiorella of the Down the paragraph, it says that they shuttered independent media, locked up journalists and members of the private sector, et cetera, et cetera. I just think that the line about the media and the journalists is really funny, given the lengths to which the U.S. has gone to silence any sort of media, which is either U.S., you know, national media, or international media, which really has no right to operate in the U.S., much less declare on electoral processes like the one going on here today.
Right. A fellow journalist was detained. They were from the UK. They were detained in Mexico. I mean, the Western NATO-backed countries are constantly undermining international law. The United States is trying to exert international jurisdiction over the free press with the imprisonment of Julian Assange. The Biden administration is still proceeding with the appeal, and now we're awaiting to hear a decision on that matter. So again, very rich of the United States government, particularly the Joe Biden administration, to talk about independent media when we're constantly censored, we're suppressed, or we are jailed. And a lot of the people that were here were independent journalists simply reporting on what was happening. They were not at all, you know, pushed by the Sandinistas government in any way, shape, or form. They were actually just shown exactly what the process was and what was happening. As somebody that's an election integrity specialist that focuses on the process, and having seen the disastrous process that we have in the United States, and the disastrous process, the way the journalists, independent media is, you know, labeled as a Russian media, is labeled as a Saudist or a foreign agents, when we simply tell the truth, and the way Julian Assange is treated, I think the Joe Biden administration is making themselves look like an entire joke in front of the rest of the world. And it's going to be very hard to turn this around. The Nicaraguan people have a lot of autonomy, and they aren't allowing this narrative to flourish, which is, I think, different than what was done, say, with Juan Guaido and Venezuela. I really find it difficult for the vast majority of the international community to believe these ridiculous accusations.
Thank you so much, Fiorella, from the Convo Couch, here visiting in Managua, Nicaragua, accompanying the electoral process, and we hope to hear from you in the coming days.
Some great work, you know what I'm saying? She worked hard here in Nicaragua and Latin America. She's like, if you haven't followed Casachua News, get on over there, follow her, amazing work. She is the one to follow if you want to know what's going on in the global South. Period. So yes.
Yeah. There's a lot of people doing great work here. You know, a lot of journalists, and again, this isn't talked about in mass media right now. It's not being talked about in mainstream media without the spin of, oh, these elections were fraudulent. They're trying to create that narrative. So that's why independent media that was here has been nonstop talking about this. And unfortunately, a lot of the you know, this sort of on the ground type of coverage doesn't get the attention that it should get, because it's so, you know, it's not, you know, meaty, like, you know, juicy things about AOC, which, I mean, we're going to talk about that tomorrow or whenever we stream again. But it's important to know. So
Did you just use the term juicy right there?
yeah, it was what you used.
Oh, wow. Look at that, ladies and gentlemen. I use juicy, and it's like, you're too much pasta. You just use juicy. But it is, to me, this is the anti-imperialist stuff is the juicy stuff. The election stuff is the juiciness. And this is like once every 5 years. There's not another election for the president for another 5 years. So you're not going to get this for another 5 years. So come on in and enjoy the juicy news. So
Yeah, so we had a video, but it's in Spanish. So should I like translate live?
There's captions.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in Spanish.
Captions in Spanish.
That is.
But you should really just keep it low, and we should translate and stuff like that, because it was a great, I mean, once again, my Spanish isn't great, but, you know, just hearing Fiorella hit the points
This
too.
isn't great.
It's not great at
You
all.
don't speak any Spanish.
I speak Spanglish, you know what I'm
Oh
saying?
my God.
I can get better at it, fam. I'm working on
You
it
don't
and
speak
stuff.
Spanish.
But I can pick it up, and I love when you were saying something Spanish, chain of custody. It was like amazing. But why don't you break down this right here too as well? It's on TikTok right now. It was a great press conference. We did one in Spanish and then one in English. So let's do it.
But yeah, but I have to read it in real time, right? So how do we do that? Yeah.
We'll just flash it.
Okay.
What? You flash it?
Johnny's doing his thing.
We can skip it if
Estamos
you want.
aquí
I
y
don't
para
want-
mí estas son las mejores elecciones que he visto yo en mi experiencia.
So we're here, and then you said what?
I said, I said we're here, and I didn't catch the first part because I didn't catch it. But I said,
Estamos aquí y para mí estas son las mejores elecciones que he visto yo en mi experiencia.
we're here, and for me, this is one of the best elections that I've seen in my experience.
Están muy organizadas.
They're
Este
very
proceso
organized.
es mucho más fácil en lo que he visto en varios de los países que yo he averiguado. Qué riqueza de los Estados Unidos de hablar de
How
elecciones
rich of the United States to talk about
fraudulentas cuando la mayoría
fraudulent elections. I mean, you can sort of see it more. So
I'll
that's
just yell it. They can hear me.
de nuestra población en los Estados Unidos no quiere votar porque dice que sus elecciones no son válidas.
When the majority of our population doesn't want to vote because they think that their election is
unfair.
unfair or
Entonces, cuando yo veo que tienen papeles, que tienen computadoras, que tienen el internet, pero que
So when I
tienen
see that they have, paper ballots, that they have the computers to register, they have internet,
una forma muy eficiente de
it's a
contar
way,
los votos,
it's an efficient way of counting the ballots.
well, they use internet to count the vote.
No.
Just internet to
I
check
didn't say
people
that.
in. Yeah.
Internet to check it.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's yeah.
que la gente no espera en la línea, que
No big lines.
Nope.
No one's
No
waiting
big
in line.
lines. Nope.
la gente está bien emocionada por votar
People are very excited to vote
porque ellos confían, ¿verdad? Tienen confianza en su país y
because they have trust in their country
en su gobierno y se sienten respaldados por
and
su
in their government, and they feel
gobierno.
supported and backed
Y
by their
eso es lo
government.
que yo vi realmente
I didn't hear the last part, but that's what I really saw
en referencia a cómo fue todo el proceso.
in reference to how the whole process was. So you guys get the gist. You guys get the gist. I pretty much the same thing that I'm saying now. I mean, I'm talking about how, compared to America, these elections were extremely fair, very efficient, very easy to track. And then later on, I say something about the chain of custody, which is lacking in the United States. When we talk about elections, in America, there's a lot of, the right and the left always argue. The left says that the right throws people's votes out, redistricts, which they do, and they shut down polling stations, which they do, and that's one way of rigging elections. But the liberals rig elections when it comes to progressives, when it comes to placebo ballots or provisional ballots, when it comes to the computer that is proprietary software, when it comes to vote by mail, pasta. Does Nicaragua have vote by mail?
No.
How many days can you vote in Nicaragua?
Uno.
Do they need ID?
No.
They don't need ID?
Oh, sí.
Yeah, so they require an ID. You have 1 day to
No
vote.
drop boxes.
No drop boxes. No vote by mail.
Yeah.
And they're still really good about working with disabled people, getting them out, the elderly, making sure that they go through everything. So honestly, Nicaragua's elections are far more efficient than ours, but also they're what we would consider right-wing in America, to show an ID, to have 1 day of voting, which, by the way, they made it a holiday. It's a Sunday where everybody is able to vote.
Yeah.
And it's not compulsory, though. You don't have to vote if you don't want to. But but the other thing is that you're registered automatically. You're registered automatically at 16 years old to vote. But then if you don't vote in the 2 previous terms, then you have to notify them. Like you can't just move. You have to notify them that you're moving. So that takes care of the whole situation that we have where people move and they can go to any polling location. You can only go to the designated polling location that is close to your home.
And it's within 15
Within 15 kilometers.
of a school.
Of a school.
Yeah.
And that is something that we saw, that we witnessed, that was just really good, the efficiency of these elections too. And not to say, like, if there's something that I can complain about the election, it is the fact that, and this is something that was amazing, like you got, like, wow, the pride of these people, is that there were a lot of handicapped people going to vote. I mean, not a lot, but a lot you don't see that in America at all, you know what I'm saying? Because if they can find a way to adapt a mail-in for handicapped people and handicapped people only, I would be cool with that, because that's not going to be able to sway an election. But to shotgun ballots out to everybody on a mailing list is just ridiculous. And once again, in America, we have no chain of custody. What we witnessed was just so great. I mean, it would be really hard to flip an election. So when you hear the Western media going, "Oh my God, this isn't a sham," and what happened, fam?
This is a sham, yeah.
You know, the Western media, they did this whole thing on Twitter, Nicaragua, no vote, trying to encourage people not to vote.
Right.
Well, guess what? 2/3 of the people already voted. Right. Sorry, you lost. They won, because the people of Nicaragua, they look at it as a gift to go and vote. They took it very, very seriously. We've talked to people here and whatnot, and they had so much pride in being able to go out and vote in their country. And once again, these elections here, they put American elections to shame. America should bury their heads in the sand, because their election system is a joke, fam.
Right. And so there was a press conference held, right, with a bunch of us, a bunch of election observers, a bunch of journalists, to the, local media, the media of the country. And of course, no corporate media showed up to cover that. I think except the Business Insider guy was there, right? The one.
No, he wasn't there. It was a phone interview.
So no, he wasn't there. None of these people, none of these corporate media outlets were there. But that's where I said that. And Pasta also has a section where he's going to talk about what he said. But basically, what we did was try to debunk the whole Western propaganda, because what we experienced in multiple cities, right? We weren't all together. Everybody went to different cities and observed, and they all observed essentially the same thing. Like, I'm not going to say that there's something wrong with the election if there's not something wrong with the election. If there's something wrong with the election, I'd be the first to say it, because we do this.
Yeah.
Like, we know how elections work in the process, right? And so we would have been the first ones to note it. And I didn't see that. I didn't see people being coerced. And, there's all these lies that we're going to go over about the New York Times saying that only advertising for Ortega was allowed, which is bullshit, because there was other candidates that were there. Yeah. And the ballots too, they were kept off the ballot. No, they were all these candidates on the ballot, candidates that were legitimate candidates, not candidates that said I'm gonna be a wishful candidate. Like, so all these things that are being thrown at us, we're trying to debunk, and everybody's trying to talk about these things.
As we have this picture up of the press conference, we got it up, John? The press conference, the last part there. I want to say something. This wasn't the Nicaraguan government that called this press conference. This was the journalists and the delegates that wanted their voices to be heard. They took it upon themselves. So you can just imagine, a lot of people say, oh, the Nicaraguan government's in this and that. They didn't even call this press conference. It was these delegates and the journalists that said, let's go out there, let's make sure that our voices are heard. Well, let's tell the truth of what we experienced, because what Western media is telling the people is a complete lie, a complete sham, and we have to talk back against it and show people the truth, period.
They organized.
Yes, they organized.
The journalists.
Yep. And the delegates too as well. They want to be able to make sure that they got their voices heard, whatnot. And they were very upset. And we have a section too as well. I know I didn't put a clip up, Johnny. You didn't put a clip where it was Johnny Fuego when he got really pissed off when we saw what the New York Times was doing. Somebody was sitting in their desk in Long Island making false accusations while we were actually on the fucking ground telling people the truth and showing people the truth. It's just crazy and bizarre about what people are doing in Western media. They weren't even in the room.
Exactly.
All right, so let's read some super rays really quick right there. Well, look at this. 26 people watching on Rokfin. We know it's late. We know it's not our normal time. But we are getting shadow banned and out of the algorithm. So help us out. Like, share, do what we got to do. Cam Schwari, Kate says, this is going to be good. And it's get juicier. We got a lot more to cover here. Aram, thank you very much for the Super 8 contribution. It is always appreciated on the couch.
And Aram, thank you for your contribution yesterday. I didn't get to say thank you because the stream was shut off.
Yeah.
So,
and we also have Billum. Thank you very much, Billum, for the Super 8 contribution. It is always appreciated on the couch. Marlene Smith, thank you, Convo fam, for all your hard work. It's amazing to see other countries' election processes and transparency compared to American elections. And your work continues to expose the U.S. empire for what it is. Your work is truly appreciated. Keep bringing the heat, fam. And we will, Marlon Smith. Yes. JVB, thank you for the Super 8 contribution. It is always appreciated on the couch. Kristen Nye, it is always appreciated on the couch. That's 4 of them. 8 to break the record. 8 to break the record.
I have a headache.
Yes, I'm going to make Fee's headache worse. So please go ahead and like and share. So let's get going with this next part too as well. So like we said, we were flown from Managua to Bilwi. Did I say it right, fam? Correct me if I'm wrong. And we were able to get in a room with all these election officials. And like I said, we hit them Convo Couch style. We hit them with question after question after question. We started from the register. Yeah, it was.
They didn't speak Spanish or they didn't speak English.
But you were there to.
Yeah, but it's some of these tech terms are technical, so you have to really, it's like translate on the spot is difficult. So it required asking a few questions. But I think we understood the process pretty well. We got a whole gist of how it was.
Yeah. We were looking for transparency, accessibility, and most important, a solid chain of custody. Right. So after we walked out of the room, Johnny was able to have a quick interview, Fee was able to have a quick interview, and I stepped up and I said, I want to have a quick interview because I thought it was important for me, a gringo in Latin America, to talk about what I witnessed right there. Mm-hmm. So the people in America can't sit there and say, well, I heard about this, I heard Ortega does this, I heard Ortega does that. No. So I wanted to bring the truth, I wanted to speak the truth, and this is on my Twitter, you can check it out. This is the little small interview I had with the press in Bilwi.
Hola. Hello, you can tell me your name and what organization you come here?
My name is Craig Pasta Jardula. I'm the partner of the 2 folks that you just interviewed from the Convo Couch. We're independent media, but we're also election integrity specialists. So we flew all over from California to come witness what you guys are doing here with this election.
You can tell me how you see this process of the election here in Nicaragua?
Yeah. Well, I hope to come here and see a very clear, transparent process. And everything we went in that room and we were told was very positive. You know what I'm saying? We hit the gentleman with many questions. We hit him from everything from the registration to the actual voting to the tabulation. And I can say this much, that the Nicaraguan system, what you have in place here, is far better than what we have in the United States. There's not only a lot of integrity and accessibility, but there's a lot of transparency. And you guys can get actual democracy here, while in the United States, we have too many fails within the system, and it seems like you have everything right here so far.
Yeah. You want to tell a thing?
Well, the thing I really like that you have going on over here is not only just the registration process and how you vote, paper tabulation, but you also have where you cast the vote, it's counted. And that's very important because we have something election integrity activists talk about all the time. It's called the chain of custody. Once the chain of custody is broken, you lose integrity within the election. Nicaragua is solidifying their elections in this region right here by making sure they count the votes where it's casted. And that's something really important that needs to be adopted by all countries when they do their elections. It's one of the things I like most about your system right here. And the checks and balances, the way it's locally counted, it's counted municipally, and then it's counted in the region, and then it's sent off to Managua. You have a lot of securities, and also the processes allow you to audit election to make sure that the vote counts. My name is Craig Pasta Jardula from the Convo Couch. Guys, thank you so much. Bueno.
Okay.
Yeah, fam.
Well, Yeah, no, I mean, essentially you said everything.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We've talked about this for so long. Why
Yeah.
can't they count the votes in the station where they
Right.
are
Yeah.
cast? I
So-
mean, it's so important.
Right, and the way they count it is they take a total tally in each junta and they count all the votes, and then they make the tally, right? They make the tally, and that's called the acta. And then they collect all the actas, and then it goes to the municipal part, and then eventually it ends up at the national, federal. What is it? The
Municipal, regional, and then national at the end of the
yeah,
day.
it's municipal, regional, and national, but it has the specific name. It's the one in Managua. It's in Managua where all the voting goes.
Yeah.
And so that's a very streamlined process. Also, when they're transporting the ballots, there are members of each party allowed to go. It's like a whole, what is that word? A whole caravan.
Yeah.
Exactly, a whole caravan of. They have the police there, the national police, making sure that everything is transported accordingly. We have no idea how the transporting goes in our country, in America, because they don't tell you. And it's supposed to be at least 2 people, but oftentimes we found it's not.
Yeah.
And
Well, the counting process is really good too as well. We don't have a clip from it today. It was on our live stream, as you can see. When we went in the room, Jonny and Fee and I, we were always making sure that we looked at the badges to see what different parties. There was always different parties in the room, unlike what happened in America with certain areas which the Republicans complained they were kicked out of the room, they couldn't see. That was a problem. It wasn't a problem in Nicaragua. All the parties were represented. And when you have that, you have a solid election with integrity because there's different parties watching over each other. So that is really great. Now, accessibility, fam. A lot of people get fooled in America when they say, oh, accessibility, we have to have drop boxes, we have to have mail-ins for everybody, whatnot. Accessibility can also lead to the fact that it takes you 5 hours to vote sometimes in the California primary, 6 hours, 7 hours, whatnot. Accessibility to me means if it's efficient, if it's quick, if you can get in and get out, rapido, right? That's very important. So I made a video over here at one of the busiest locations. Now this is a long time for somebody to vote. At one point, me and Jonny spoke to some people who were like, you're already done voting? 2 minutes it took them. 2 minutes. So this was an actual busy location. So watch how long it took this gentleman to vote right over here. Aquí está bueno. Oye, mira, ¿cómo te llamas?
I'm Medhurst.
So you're voting today, right? Okay, we're going to start the clock. You ready? Is it rolling? Bueno. ¿Cómo te llamas uno más?
Medhurst.
We'll see how long it takes them to vote. Bueno, I'll follow you. Eight minutes and 43 seconds from a man to vote. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. How do you feel? Bueno, gracias.
Bien, bien.
Bien?
Sí, bien.
Gracias. Thank you so much. 8 minutes, 43 seconds to vote. America, can we get to this time right here? 8 minutes, 43 seconds to vote. Look at that. Everybody. He didn't have to get pizza. He didn't order Chinese food. 8 minutes, 43 seconds. Gracias. Fam, 8 minutes and 43 seconds at a busy location.
Right. In Los Angeles, I mean, you just saw hours and hours people waiting in line. And that happens in the richest country in the world, the most developed, blah, blah, blah. I mean, we're not, but this is what they say we are. And so, yeah, I mean, that was pretty awesome that you did that. I thought that was cool.
Thank you. It's just so easy because we we were experiencing this stuff in California. And to me, it just blew my mind. I'm like, how are people accepting this crap? You know, the pizza lines. We ordered pizza twice to sit and vote. People aren't going to do that. So when you talk about accessibility, it's about getting people in and out quick, expedient, and Nicaragua has that down to a T, and we could have that down to a T if we wanted to too as well. Yeah. I don't want to hear shit that it's the computers, that it's this and that. It's the fact that you guys take this and say it's okay. You should say it's not okay. Dean Logan deserves to be fired.
Who's Dean Logan?
Dean Logan is the registrar of California. Right. For what happened in those California primaries, it was ridiculous. But they do that on purpose. Why? Because then they can sell you the mail-in system. Like, well, everybody should get mail-in because it takes too long to vote.
Right.
It's just ridiculous. That's what they want. And there's no security in an election like that. Yeah. The last part of the Bill thing I put up was the greatest 24-hour trip I've ever experienced. And I would like you to talk a little bit more about this, fam, too, as well, because we had heard that 15 years ago, before Daniel Ortega took over, that Bill had no electricity, no nothing. And I said, this is the greatest 24-hour trip I've ever experienced. The people of Bilwi are amazing. They are not wealthy, but they are happy. They lack resources, but they are humble. They appreciate the small things we in the West take for granted. But above everything, they are proud to be Nicaraguan. And your thoughts on what you experienced with the autonomy zones and indigenous people in Bilwi.
Right. So the autonomous zones have mesquite people. They have the different types of indigenous populations. Mosquito that were, there before. And so I asked this woman who, specializes in this, and when we were with all the election officials in Bilwi, and I asked her, what came first? Was it, the Sandinistas government, or was it the people organizing? And she said, no, it's the indigenous communities organized themselves that way. They wanted their autonomy. They wanted to maintain their way of life. In order to live in some of these regions, you have to be approved by them, and the reason being is because there's always an attempt to try to colonize them, right? To try to get them to be a certain way. That's what happens in Peru. A lot of these people, just the government goes in there and tells them they have to do this, they have to do that. Well, the Sandinistas government actually kept their hands off of them, but still supported them through funding for schools and building of schools, new schools, of centers for women who are pregnant, of roads, like Pasta said, the water is more potable. They experienced 2 hurricanes back to back last year, and they were able to quickly rebuild these people's roofs. So that doesn't even happen in countries, in other countries, especially like if you look at Puerto Rico and how Puerto Rico is constantly exploited through disaster capitalism, right?
A year later, still.
And exactly. A year later, they still don't have electricity. But look who Puerto Rico is under. Puerto Rico is practically a colony of the United States. So that just goes to show you how different that is. But another thing I wanted to point out is when I was in Bilwi, one of the people that were, kind of directing us and taking care of us and showing us around, they were saying how they like the Sandinistas because they don't try to promote, abortion and certain LGBTQ things. And that could be, a lot of leftists might have a problem with that. Meaning this Sandinistas government isn't like super, they don't focus on these social justice issues in terms of the LGBTQ community. They're more conservative on that end. Socially conservative when it comes to drugs, when it comes to abortion, when it comes to, sexual orientation. But they still are leftists in terms of the economics of it. Yeah. And that's what I think a lot of the left doesn't understand in America, where they think that, they have to come here and be like, hey, can you please, make abortion legal? Can you talk about trans rights? Like that's not where these people are at. And you have to meet them where they're at. And where they're at is they're fighting against U.S. sanctions. They're fighting to have actual water and electricity and roads and schools and have things, that we take for granted. That's where they're at. And I think focusing on the economics eventually gets you more educated on the social issues, and eventually it happens. But for a lot of, I think, leftists that are online and on Twitter, they would look at that and be like, oh, I don't like that because they're so conservative and they need to do this. You are nobody to dictate how a country should operate on their beliefs. The vast majority of the population in Nicaragua is religious. So they're a religious Christian country. They're not going to change because some outsider comes in and tells them how to run their country. And that's some of the things that I also wanted to explain to some of our conservative followers. Just because they're, quote unquote socialist and they have a very socialist type of economic setup and a type of government doesn't mean that they're liberal when it comes to social issues. They're actually a lot more conservative. And I think a lot of people assume that everything in every other country is going to be divided like it is in America, where it's, left and right, Republican and Democrat. And no, it's not like that. Iran is another example. Iran is another example of that as well.
Yeah, you hit it right on the nose. So let's play the press conference right now. This is the press conference we had. It was a Spanish one and an English one. Pretty much I just taught a little rundown of what we talked about and what we experienced, and that was so great, fam, all that stuff you said. I just want to kind of lay off that, because I talk about the economics all the time. I think a lot of conservatives in the States would be surprised about the way they are socially conservative over here, and it's just economically they're leftist, whatnot. So let's take a look at the press conference over here. I kind of summed it up, 2 minutes and 20 seconds. We want to be short and quick at the press conference, so that's what I did. Here we go.
Non-stop, the foreign ministry, they gave us access to everything. But more importantly, the people of Nicaragua who opened up this process to us. It was really, really important. And it's not just important for the people of Nicaragua, but it's also important for people of the world. Because for any democracy to thrive, we must have fair, transparent, trackable, and verifiable elections. It's uber important. And I'm not going to harp too much on any type of politics, but I want to concentrate on the process itself. I didn't really care who was on the ballot. All I cared about was the framework and the process of which we saw to see that it was a fair, transparent election. And every step of the way here in Nicaragua, that's exactly what we got. From the registration process down to the fluidity of the voting process. We, in fact, clocked a voter who got in and out in 8 minutes and 43 seconds. And that was a long time, in fact. Could you imagine in America, which we saw in California with the California primaries, people waiting 5, 6, 7, 8 hours just to vote? We didn't see that in Nicaragua. And everything was great even down to the tabulation process, where we had multiple parties in the room to assure integrity. The whole step of the way, which was great. But mainly I want to talk about the process, meaning the chain of custody, because that's something that we really saw that was great here in Nicaragua. It made this election a home run. The chain of custody is very strong here, including the fact that in Nicaragua we have something that is awesome that a lot of countries need to adopt, which is where the vote is cast, it is counted. That assures a strong chain of custody. And regardless that we heard a lot of misinformation when it came to parties being jailed and not being able to run on the ballot, which was so untrue. We understand that a lot of these parties received money from NGOs and they didn't want to declare where they got their money from. We saw one of the cleanest processes here in Nicaragua. It was definitely a home run. So I'm just going to keep it short and simple and talk about the fact that Nicaragua has a great chain of custody. And a lot of countries need to look at that and adopt that, because that's what made this election right here in Nicaragua a home run. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So, fam, you called me a goon. What did you think? I mean, but we really did tell you the truth. Really, for me to talk about use this terminology in a setting like this, I think it's so important, because we do have a lot of anti-imperialist people out there, whatnot. But we're election integrity specialists. We understand this inside and out. We understand the chain of custody, how important it is. And when Nicaragua's system, the fact they have where it's cast, it's counted, I keep saying it and repeating because it is so important. Can you imagine it? I mean, how many times we saw, remember the Debbie Wasserman Schultz election where they're loading boxes into a truck over here, one person driving with these boxes? Remember when Johnny wrote the article, a guy showing up by himself with a case that looks like the same thing that the ballots are transported in? I mean, this is serious here, fams, because you could sway a turn election any way if you break the chain of custody.
Right. And a lot of these people that wanted to come in, like the OAS, they wanted to be the ones controlling the elections. And Daniel Ortega said after, we're not going to allow that to happen ever, ever again. Yeah. And that's something Nicaragua hasn't allowed. I mean, they haven't allowed a Guaido type of figure to emerge like, in Venezuela, where they made Guaido some sort of important politician, even though he was nobody. The Nicaraguan people aren't allowing that to happen. And I saw somebody in the chat ask what they do to gay people. They don't do anything to them.
No.
There's gay people here. It's not like that. I'm saying
So
they don't hyper focus on it. I like a lot of the liberal left here who call themselves communists and call themselves socialists. They lead with identity politics. They lead with social issues before economics. And I think that is the wrong thing to do. It's not that you're not fighting for people's human rights. It's just that you're leading with what?
No, go ahead.
What's the issue?
Nothing. We're just laughing because we know, like, the person that's with us, how he was saying all this stuff and making jokes, so.
What person?
Our friend in there.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, but yeah.
Remember what he said the other day? Like, somebody said something, oh, you were like, this conversation's crazy, it's blowing my mind.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, I don't give a shit. Like, they don't care. And I'm laughing because of the states. These people would cancel each other.
No, yeah, like the conversations we've been having and people have been having here are so open and so like welcoming, even if there's disagreement. And if I could have, all these people be in government, I would. I mean, it's just, this is the way things should be done, not, hyper focusing on forcing people to have an ideology where they're not there yet, guys. It's just, especially being an American coming in and trying to dictate how somebody should be, that should just ring a bell. Like, you shouldn't be doing that anyway.
And let's be honest, if you really want to improve that in a country like this, you improve the economics, you improve the education. If you improve the economics and education, that will fix itself so much better than actually trying to tell people how they should think. You can't be the thought police. And that's what's important about Nicaragua right now. Their leftist movement is all about economics and resources. Electricity, waters, road, food, education. That's what they're fighting for. That's what the Sandinistas have been providing to their people. And that's why they're so popular here in Nicaragua. They changed the title over here. This is funny, right? It went from American podcasters to American YouTubers.
No, I think it always said that.
It was already said, well, Nicaragua paid for American YouTubers to observe an election that critics say was a sham. Critics say was a sham. Well, first of all, you're an asshole for calling us YouTubers. We're journalists. We're political commentators. We're political analysts. We're election integrity specialists. To call us YouTubers.
Well, they have to dismiss you because they have to discredit you. This is what they do. Business Insider is mainstream media bullshit. They always go after the gray zone. Particularly this guy, right? This guy in particular. The fact that they're coming after us is actually
Charles Davis.
It's actually an honor. I love the fact that you come after us. You see this channel as a threat, and it's crazy because we haven't been streaming in days, so it takes us out of the algorithm, and we don't have as many viewers as we usually do. Normally we have like 4 or 5 times the viewers, but it's crazy that he took the time to really write a smear piece full of McCarthyism, by the way. The Nicaraguan government's close ally is Russia. And sure, Nicaragua is going to make allies with people who are not trying to overthrow the country, trying to overthrow their democratically elected leader. So I don't understand. Of course they're gonna have relationships with other superpowers. But to act like we were funded and like we were paid to frame this a certain way is bullshit. And not just us, but like everybody else has been getting attacked. They're not credible media. They're not against it, so they must be not credible. So I have to be against somebody's election process in order to be credible. I have to spew the narrative that they're spewing. I mean, the shit that they said to you. I mean, I would have had a field day with that guy. He's lucky he didn't interview.
Well,
me.
he cherry picked things. I went after him pretty well. I kind of debunked everything he was saying. Even at one point, Mr. Davis didn't throw this in there. We were talking about the election process. After he'd asked me all the questions: where you're staying, what you're doing, how'd you get there, who helped you out, who did this, who did that.
Yeah, but
you know what I'm saying?
Those questions, I would have been like, that has nothing to do with the subject at hand. We're not going to discuss that. We're going to talk about the issue. Because that's what they do. They try to get you to give information to sway it a certain way. And
of course they did. But, I wasn't going to be dishonest. I was going to be open about everything. I did. He twisted it, whatnot. He really didn't talk about the process involved. Because even at one point he says, well, yeah, that could be a fair process and everything like that. But when you eliminate all your competition, is it really fair then? And I debunked the shit right away. I said, come on, Mr. Davis, you know as well as I that NGOs supported a lot of these pre-candidates. They weren't even real candidates.
Weren't
they were
competition.
pre-candidates, and they were supported by NED OAS,
And they
whatnot, and
refuse
all
to
this stuff like
disclose their
that.
money.
Exactly.
They never
So
voted out the candidate.
No,
exactly.
they-
Never voted out the
No,
candidate.
it'd be like, I'm a candidate
Yeah.
just because I declare it. That doesn't make you a candidate. And
And-
they were receiving money from the United States government.
Exactly.
Control the government.
Exactly.
So imagine if we did that.
Well, I said, can you imagine if Iran and North Korea supported a candidate in the United States, what would happen? He goes, well, yeah. Well, that wasn't involved in his article, right? I mean, then it was like, okay, all right, so.
But January 6th,
Yeah.
to not go far.
Yeah.
Look at what they're doing to the people for protesting and rioting on January 6th, and they're trying to still call this an insurrection and act like it was the worst thing since 9/11.
Yeah.
And how dare these people call that an insurrection and then be totally fine with these people trying to overthrow the government?
Yeah.
Like, it's just so hypocritical. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And we're talking about, like, these people who supported the coup here in 2018 were the same groups that were supporting these candidates that were trying to run, these pre-candidates that were trying to run in this election.
Right.
So it really was a sham. And like you said, January 6th was so little. Can you imagine, like, if they were with the same type of tactics they're doing here in Nicaragua as they did in the United States? It'd be ridiculous. It says a pantomime election, U.S. Joe Biden called it. Now, fam, this is something that's very interesting. The first paragraph, Peru's left-wing government agreed, saying it didn't even meet the minimum criteria for a free and fair vote. He did that because you know what I'm saying? They know who we are. They watched the Convo Couch. They did their homework, so they knew you were Peruvian. Your thoughts on that first thought right away?
Peru.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. A lot of us were criticizing Peru's government and Pedro Castillo for making that statement because we're sitting right here experiencing how it was a fair and free election. And for Castillo to say that, especially when he was elected to oppose the boot of the empire, U.S., to oppose U.S. imperialism, to say that means his government's been co-opted. And we've seen that started with the firings that happened within the government, with the Marxist-Leninist guy being kicked out and all of these things, and somebody else leaving. So now it's kind of like, it's no surprise at this point, but it is very shitty to hear somebody that we were excited about really fold over that quickly. I mean, if you were elected to do that, to oppose, you can't fold in that quickly. And unfortunately, he has. And anybody saying that this election is a sham is a lie. Is lying to you. Yeah. They're absolutely lying to you. Is it more conspiratorial that 6 million people and all of us journalists and all of us observers are all lying? Or maybe the United States and the CIA and the state agencies are lying, because I have no horse in this race. If Nicaragua had conducted unfair elections, we would say it. But but they didn't. And in fact, everybody was extremely welcoming, extremely kind, extremely, they're very secure about things. They don't play games when it comes to the security of Ortega, the event we were in, when he was celebrating with the people, or when it comes to the security coming through the airport, or when it comes to certain things like even the COVID test. But when it comes to their elections, that's also there. And so that's why I think there wasn't, there is no basis. They have no basis. They don't provide any evidence either. How was it a sham election? How?
They just say that out there.
Just because they didn't include those people that weren't real candidates?
Yeah. Well, that was great work by Ben Norton to debunk that whole situation to show. And he says they have all the receipts. He wrote a great article. But let me read a couple more paragraphs and we'll get off this and get on to the next section, because you got to like the way this CIA cuck Charles Davis writes. But Craig Pasta Jardula, an American invited by the Nicaraguan government to observe what critics say was a formality, the re-election of leftist revolutionary turned centrist strongman Daniel Ortega, said the November 7 election was a model for self-styled patriots in the United States to follow, citing its requirement that voters show identification. So to kind of implement this wording the way he's doing this, he's just trying to twist things right away.
He's trying to make you like a right-winger.
A right-winger and whatnot.
And he also says that we are anti-mandate, which it's not a bad thing to be anti-mandate.
Yeah,
I don't
at
know,
all.
I know very few people in leftist circles that are in media at this point that are pro-mandate. Yeah. Very few. It's all the cucks. It's the vast majority.
All the cucks. They take election security seriously, he said when I was talking about the Convo Couch. Jardula isn't just a random observer. He's a podcaster. He showed the Convo Couch. What'd I say?
No, I said
His show, The Convo Couch, transcending traditional notions of left and right, from boosting Bernie Sanders during the Democratic primaries to campaigning against vaccine mandates today, fam.
Yeah, so what is he, a commie or a right-winger? Because you're saying he's boosted Bernie Sanders, but you're also saying he's anti-mandate. So you're saying he transcends left, right, the show. Yeah, because we're fucking talking about the issues. We're not trying to, personally, we've told you guys where we fall politically, and I've discussed it. But when it comes to covering things, we're going to cover the truth. That's why it's so hard for so many people to understand. Like, we're going to tell you the truth. We're not driven from the ideology first. We're driven from the truth. And that's the difference between, I think, a lot of people, especially on the left, where they have to have this ideology and shove it in everybody's faces, or they just can't. Like, let me speak my truth. Like,
yeah, but let me speak my truth. And just the last paragraph real quick, because guys, we encourage you to go read this article and stuff. He ended up talking about the 8 minutes and 43 seconds, but it is. But on January 6th, he and his co-host, Fiorella Isabel, another state-sponsored Nicaraguan election observer. State-sponsored Nicaraguan.
I mean, he's hinging here on libel.
Yeah, went to Washington, D.C. and provided sympathetic coverage of Trump supporters crying fraud. No, not at all, he said when asked if the 2020 election was free and fair.
It wasn't. It wasn't.
That pedigree is what led the two to Nicaragua. That pedigree.
So what are you saying here? Like, are you saying we're Trump supporters, or are you saying we're commies? Because then he talks about McCarthy, the Russians, and all this stuff. So what are you? How can we be both?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Sympathetic coverage. No, we went there to cover it. We actually didn't plan to go there initially. We were at the Julian Assange event and the Force the Vote event. And then, of course, that happened. So we happened to be there, and we filmed, and Pasta interviewed people, and that's what we did. Like, we weren't like, stop the steal. We weren't saying that. But what we were saying is understanding where these people were coming from, because we don't have fair and free elections in this country. We haven't in a while. It didn't start with Trump. It won't end with Trump.
Yeah.
This is where we're at. And anybody that tells you that our elections are fair and free is a gigantic liar. Our elections are some of the most corrupt, and I wish that we could have election observers from all over the world come to our country and really discover how terrible our elections are. In fact, why doesn't the OAS come in?
Yeah, they never do.
I mean, they won't. They're going to be like, oh no, America has great elections. No, they fucking
We
don't.
never have foreign observers coming in and look at our elections and say, are you guys serious? The last part I want to read is halfway down. It says, Jardula said he paid for his own flight to Central American country, but the Nicaraguan government had to, and he puts in quotes, covered our rooms and food and that sort of thing. He puts, and that sort of thing. They also paid for a flight from the capital, Managua, to a polling station in the largely indigenous northeast part of the country, allowing Jardula and his business partner to upload video of what they saw to their YouTube channel.
Allowing? They're not in charge of what we post.
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about?
But what are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to walk to Billy? Are we supposed to get our own bus ride or something like that? Of course. That's what you do. You bring observers into other parts of the country to observe the election all over the place, not just Managua. So I don't even understand what they're trying to say with this. I mean, this guy, he's really just trying to paint a picture.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have talked about any of that stuff. Yeah. But it's just because, but it's nothing. It's like these people are, they want observers. They want people to show how the elections go. So the OAS and other, CIA fronts don't claim that the election is unfair, and they still do it anyway. But now you have a ton of evidence. You have journalists, you have observers, you have a bunch of people that were there, and you have people who voted who are saying the elections were fair. Even the people from the opposition were saying that the elections were fair.
Yeah, we saw them all. I'm going to just end on that one too as well. You can go read the article yourself.
Fuck the article. You guys shouldn't read the article. It's a bunch of bullshit. It's a smear piece.
It is.
I don't want to give it more.
He does talk about the last part where I went to a busy location, and he tries to kind of rag on me for saying that I'm not for voting mail-in voting. I am. Only under certain circumstances that should you be able to get a mail-in vote, as far as I'm concerned. You should be able to request it, whatnot. But the whole thing is they broke the system, make sure that it takes you too long to vote, that you're going to want to vote by mail. But if it was quick, fast, and fluid, more people would show up to vote, and you'd have more of a secure ballot. more of a secure voting process. And that's just the truth. You know what I'm saying? If you want to have mail-in voting, it has to be done properly. There has to be a chain of custody. End of story. And you can't just send it out to everybody on the voter polls. You have to have them request it. That's just my personal opinion. And there's a reason why other countries like France don't even have mail-out balloting anymore. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Absentee ballots. Nicaragua doesn't have it. A lot of other countries don't have it. They want security. They want security, and and that's why they have it that way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Johnny's
on the voting credentials part. We have a tweet.
Go over it. They can kind of hear me, but.
So the voting credentials part, Johnny made up a tweet. It's a great tweet. And then he jumped online and he did a little reporting. The voting process in the Northeast Autonomous Region in Nicaragua. Voters had to show ID, paper ballots. There's no vote by mail. And there's no ballot marking devices either, by the way. Had 2 election officials verifying and explaining how to vote. Voters were taking less than 5 minutes to vote, and 16 years or older are eligible to vote. Here is Johnny's clip in the autonomous region.
Here we are, another voting center station that is open and running very peacefully and running very democratically. Again, so CNN, New York Times, you are lying. So she just voted and she said it took 2 minutes for her to vote. And this is what we've been seeing all across all the voting centers that we've been to. 8 minutes, 5 minutes, 2 minutes. So we want to enter a junta. Let's go into this number 2, because you already Paso went to number one before. Well, I guess we need somebody to guide us, right? ¿Podemos entrar? Sí? Okay, gracias. Okay, so as you can see, this is junta número 2. And again, it's the same setup. This is a random one that we just went into. Paso went into this one. It's the first one. It's the same thing. So you can see this is where people vote. It's very secluded. You have your little box here. You have a pen there to vote. You have the ballots. Hola, ¿cómo están? Perfecto. This is the roster. The roster. ¿Me puedes enseñar en una página? So mira, so look, people come in. They have their identifications, and then they have pictures of people's identification in there. They come in, bring their identification, show it, and then once they verify it, they give them the pen to sign. And once they sign, then they come over here to the other person who gives them the ballot. Ustedes usan el stamp, ¿no? Para el código, el número. So they use the stamp for the code number. They put it on the back of the ballot. They both sign off on the ballot. They explain how to vote, who and what races there are. And then they, and then the person can go over there, vote, fold it up, put it in this box, and then get their thumb inked. And then that's their proof that they voted. And that's everything. And they can't vote again. Oh, no, tú eres PLS. Yatama. Okay, there's 3 different parties. FSLN. 3 different parties there. So that would be like having Democrat, Republican, and a Green Party observing what's going on over here. They don't look at They don't look at what the person's voting for. They're just seeing that the process is a democratic process and that everything is happening democratically. That they get the thumbprint inked on. Gracias.
The next one here is proof that the ink is still on in Nicaragua. A citizen's thumb still not gone after 36 hours. This eliminates the fact that you can try to double vote, right? Yep. Okay, this is what this is about. Johnny's got it up there. We saw it. We saw the 3 parties in the room.
Yep.
We saw how fast it is to vote.
And not only do you have to bring your ID, they literally have a picture of your ID in a booklet, the booklet he showed, where it shows that your face on it. I mean, if we imagine implementing that in the States, oh my God, you want Nazism, right-wing,
please.
Like, it's just, but also they are able to give everybody an ID.
Well, gotta pay.
Yeah, people have to pay for the ID.
$8.
$8. Yeah.
No. Is it?
It's about 35. So. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just about.
A little over. 200.
Yeah, a little bit over 200.
But if they can't afford to pay for it, they can use an old expired ID. That law just passed. So they're even making it more accessible for people to get an ID. So all these people have no problem getting an ID, but we have problems giving people an ID in America. I just don't understand. Like,
this is indigenous people in an autonomous region. Getting an ID. Hello?
An ID.
Yeah.
How can America not? I'm just baffled.
Yeah. But fam, are you a right-wing Fascist for making
I'm
people
such
bring
a
an
right-wing
identification.
fascist for covering
How many things do you need
socialist
IDs
elections.
for? Everything in America. Everything.
There was a funny comment.
Go ahead.
I'm such a, it's crazy. Like, this is what a socialist country does, guys. So to all the what is it, the cappuccino commies?
The cappuccino commies.
You side with Republicans. You just want. No, I side with what makes fucking sense. We need security in our elections. What is it?
I didn't know white supremacists ruled Nicaragua.
Yeah,
Dwight saves America. We love you. Dwight. Well, that's the thing. It's crazy. You have to show ID. You got to get the stamp. These are things that a lot of conservatives want. But guess what, conservatives? It's a socialist country. They have more democracy in a socialist country than your capital. Free health care.
Teaching you English.
A fair system of voting.
But you don't have to. Free healthcare, free teaching of English. I mean, in certain aspects, there is a tax, but it's not nowhere near what we pay at all in taxes. So there's that aspect too.
Well, Natalie Kitroff, maybe we should follow her, fam. I'm not following her. Should I go follow her? Now, this is my name on the tweet, but this is a Jonny tweet because Jonny was fired up. We started looking at the New York Times, and they were lying. As we're at the centers, they're like, they're closing all the big centers right now.
They're closing all the polling centers.
This is terrible. She wrote, arresting all credible challenges. Nicaragua is holding what it calls an election today. Daniel Ortega has prepared by arresting all credible challengers, shutting down opposition parties, banning large campaign events, closing voting stations, and masse.
Extremely false.
That's the New York Times. So, Jonny, we fired up. Hey, Natalie, stop lying. We're on the ground right now. Nicaragua voting centers are open and running peacefully. How many times did we get the word peacefully over the weekend? From the people, from the officials, the people, everybody, peacefully. We just left the largest voting center in Nicaragua and now are at our third voting center.
Yep. I mean, these people are paid to lie,
Yeah.
Like, they're propagandists, they're trash. And again, that's why they have to write, smear pieces, because they don't do their jobs. I mean, we do their jobs better than they do. Right? So that's why they're threatened. Nobody's watching mainstream media anymore. Very few people are. If they are, they're older. They're not really where we're at right now. And it's, I'm not saying that, anything against older people. I'm just saying, like, very few people are watching mainstream media nowadays. This next generation isn't watching it. So what do we have to do? We have to guide them. We have to guide them in terms of why we're doing this, what's got to be done, etc.
Yeah. Jonny, Fee, anything to say before we get on to some Super Rays?
Hello. Hi.
There he is.
We are live.
There it is.
Again, in the autonomous region here, Northeast autonomous region, Nicaragua. I just wanted to live do this because this is fucking ridiculous. I can't believe this is coming out. New York Times today has put out, Nicaragua descends into autocratic rule as Ortega crushes dissent. Article by Yubelka Mendoza and Natalie Kitroff. Just so you know. Okay. November 7th, as of 5 a.m. Eastern, so a few hours ago. After methodically choking off competition and dissent, President Daniel Ortega all but ensued his victory in a presidential contest on Sunday, signaling Nicaragua's descent into autocratic rule. In his quest for a fourth consecutive term as the country's president, Mr. Ortega detained all credible challengers who planned to run against him, shut down opposition parties, banned large campaign events, and closed voting stations en masse. Which is bullshit because we just filmed at one voting station, which is the largest voting center in Nicaragua, and now we're at another voting center, and we went to one before these two in the morning, and we're in the autonomous region of Nicaragua. So this article here by New York Times is saying that he has closed voting stations en masse. Is Yubelka Mendoza and Natalie Kitroff, are you guys on the ground? Are you guys here? Where are you? We're here. People are voting. People are getting registered, are signing up right there. They're finding their identification. They're finding their junta, their little area to go vote, their little classroom. You go into the classroom and you go vote, and that's where that's what they're doing right now. You can see the Nicaraguan flag flying high, windy. It's nice and breezy out here, and a very nice temperature. It's a little hot actually. This article goes on to say that the commission that monitors elections has been entrusted to his loyalists And there, oh my God. Okay, so right there, that one line, half of a sentence is wrong, has been entrusted to his loyalists. There's people from all different parties in each junta. Uh, there's the two main parties, and then there's another party if they so wish to be there in each junta, in each classroom where they go vote. And there have been no public debates among the contest's 5 remaining candidates. I don't know about that. All of whom are little-known members of parties aligned with Mr. Ortega's Sandinista government.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah,
awesome stuff.
exactly.
I'm gonna pat ourselves on the back over here, but that's awesome shit. We're debunking the New York Times, Joe Zombie Biden, the OAS in real freaking time in Nicaragua, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, and everybody was debunking them. I mean, when we all saw the tweets and shit, we're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, we're here right now. Where are you guys? They have all this money and they can't send a few reporters. At least send them. And, they might see the CNN logo and be like, okay, guys, they might watch them.
Yeah.
But you can interview people who just voted. You can do whatever. When I went to Peru, I didn't go as part of an election observer. I went as a journalist, and I covered the whole process. I was let in. They weren't like, oh, you're not allowed in. No, they allowed me in.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, these people, if they wanted to actually cover this, they could have. They just chose not to.
Mm-hmm. And guys, I want to say this much too as well. When Charles Davis asked me, well, the fact that they're putting you up, doesn't that kind of persuade you to talk the way they want you to talk? I'm like, no, dude. This is one of the most amazing, eye-opening trips I've ever had in my own life. It's been hard fucking work. It really has. We've lacked sleep. We've got no sleep. We've been up at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. We haven't had water at certain times, whatnot, or cold water. You know what I'm saying? We couldn't shut the lights off and I couldn't go to sleep. I felt like I was being interrogated for a couple hours and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? It was such hard work, running over here, running over there. So believe you me, this is work. This isn't a bribe. It's the most asinine thing I've ever fucking heard in my life. And that's what they're trying to fucking... It'd be one thing to say, well, I have a receipt over here that they paid you $10,000. But, they put you up in a freaking Holiday Inn Express type of hotel? Like, really? I mean, that's going to persuade me to fucking throw away everything we've been doing for 3.5 years, telling the truth? Telling our truth, fam. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's stupid. And that shows you what little they got. They got nothing. They got this woman from the New York Times who's sitting at her desk probably in frickin' Long Island writing about shit that she's not even at when we're sitting there going, what are you talking about? We're going from junta to junta. We're going from voting center to voting center. Everything is open en masse. 66% of the people voted. And there was a big campaign telling people, no vote, don't vote. It didn't work. You're liars. You've been exposed. Okay,
right, fam.
Super Race. Susan Molson, thank you, she says. Here's Heather Hester. Thank you so much for the generous Super Ray contribution. Enlightening, enjoyable, and excellent investigative journalism. Thank you for bringing me along your trip to Nicaragua. Con mucho cariño. Cariño. Thank you so much, Hester. Ian Rothman, thank you for the Super Ray contribution. You guys just fucking rock. So do you. Thank you for continuing to bring the truth no matter where it takes you. And it took us to fucking Managua and all around the country. It's great. Kristen Nye, no government should ever be trusted. I've gone from vote blue no matter who to complete anarchy in 6 years. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, Kristen, a lot of people have it. I'm glad you're right here with us now because, it's interesting you mentioned anarchy. The goal of the theory of communism eventually is a stateless society, right? And so anarchists have a lot of, when you think of anarchist, a lot of people think of the wrong thing. They think of chaos and stuff. That's not what it is. It's just there wouldn't be a government in anarchists. You don't need the government, that sort of thing. But the way Nicaragua does it is they have these facilities, whether they're schools, hospitals, roads, all these things. They provide them for the people. The people can use them, but the people have full autonomy in their communities. They have their own judges. They have their own, type of government system. They're not told in Bilwi and in other parts too, but particularly where we're focused on Bilwi because that's where we went. And so they have full autonomy to really organize their community the way they want, while simultaneously feeling free to use what the government has provided. So for us, it's kind of like, for me, that's like a dream thing because what it is, it's decentralized power. Because a lot of the criticisms that come from the right about communism and from libertarians and from anarchists is the centralized power structure. You know, when they think of Stalin or they think of people who have the USSR, they think about, oh, that's too authoritarian. They have this idea that that's what it is. But Nicaragua, the way they've done it, and we're not saying it's going to work everywhere in the same way, but the Nicaraguans, the way they've done it in regions like Bilwi is amazing, because there's a decentralized form of power. And that is what you need to keep people comfortable, to keep people feeling like they have their own decisions, because they do, they make their own decisions. But also, like, in case you need something, the government does provide. So it's kind of you have the best of both worlds. And I think it functions well for their country. I think for our country, honestly, America's probably too big. We're gonna have to divide ourselves a little bit. Like, I don't see a way forward, because we have so many issues with the federal government versus the states. So I just wanted to comment on that.
Well, let's get through some of these other journalists that put some stuff out there, because they really made some great points. One of the person we would great to see, Margaret Kimberly, friend of the show, has been on before. She's going to come on again. Look at this tweet she put up here, right? See the top row of ballots right there, okay? Who among the presidential candidates is in jail? There's 6 candidates. And when you ask somebody, oh, he jailed all his competition, who in particular? I don't know. Western media says he jailed people. There's 6 people on the ballot right over there. Right. Yeah, there's 6 people on the ballot right there. You had 6 choices right there.
They're not jailed. They're there.
They're not jailed. They're there. Great shot, Margaret Kimberly. Great to put it out. One of the sad things about this whole situation, Steve Sweeney, a British reporter, was shut out, and he was not allowed to come do his work over here in Nicaragua. They made it a point to not let him come. I believe, was he detained in Mexico? Or? Yes. He was. So here's one of a friend of the show now as well, a friend we just met, Ahmed Cabello, awesome, talking about, and he was one of the only representatives from England, from Britain, here talking about what's going on in this election.
So Steve Sweeney from the Morning Star has been detained in Mexico while he was en route to Nicaragua to cover the presidential elections. Now, Steve is the only British journalist working for a British newspaper that came to cover these elections from the ground, and he's been prevented from doing his job by Mexico. And it's hard to come to any other conclusion apart from this being political. Why was he detained? Why at this time? And he hasn't even been informed of what he's been detained for. So it needs to be highlighted. People need to raise their voice for Steve Sweeney and ensure that he's not only released, but released in time to cover these extremely important elections at a time when the US is imposing more sanctions against another Latin American socialist country. So Steve Sweeney from the...
Steve Sweeney, because he's British, but he's not reporting for a British newspaper. So that's the difference. Steve Sweeney was reporting for a British newspaper, and they held him up. And they try to do that to some of our friends, hold them up, not allow them in the country, because they don't want independent journalists to cover these elections, because they know we're not tied to corporate media. We don't get, a statement that says you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't say this, you can't say that. We can say whatever the hell we want, because we talk about the truth. So they don't want this to be covered. And the fact that he was detained just shows how powerful the West and, obviously the United States, but also Great Britain, which, what they're doing in tandem to Julian Assange, just goes to show you, this is what they do. They try to exert international jurisdiction over the free press. This is what they're doing. And I would be livid if somebody detained me and I couldn't cover the story, and that's exactly what they did.
Yeah. So Steve Sefton, awesome guy, met this gentleman too as well. It was great to meet so many people. Like, hey, I'm a fan of your work, and meet all these people who've done this before, been in Nicaragua and other countries in Latin America. Camilla from Quechua News interviewed him, and here's what he had to say.
Sweeney has finally been released by the Mexican authorities. He was detained without being told why on the night of last Friday, November 5th. So in effect, he's been detained for 3 days, and he was held in very bad conditions, in a room without ventilation, and he was denied food for 3 days. Every time he asked why he was being detained, they've refused to give him a reason. And what an indictment of the Mexican authorities, really. But we're very, very glad that he's free and is safely on his way home back to the United Kingdom. But in effect, I think what Steve has been subject to is a deliberate, politically motivated, arbitrary detention by the Mexican authorities to stop the only British journalist that was going to come and cover the elections here in Nicaragua. And it seems to us here in our group of journalists that was absolutely clearly the reason why he was detained. So, and our reaction here is one of great satisfaction that he's finally been set free after 3 days of effectively being tortured, starved of food, and kept in an unventilated room for 3 days. He was denied access to the British consulate. He asked repeatedly to be able to call the British consul and was consistently refused by the Mexican authorities. And so we're very satisfied that he's out of that situation, but also extremely disappointed that such a talented journalist, probably one of the very few outspoken, honest journalists operating in British reporting today, was refused permission to come to Nicaragua to cover these regionally highly important and significant elections.
Wow,
and
crazy.
the fact that Mexico allowed that.
Yeah, AMLO, you better get your people shit together, AMLO.
That just for me, it just shows there's not enough control of the country, right? There's not enough influence by the true anti-imperialists left in Mexico to allow that to happen. Yeah. And because something happened to Commander X, remember, as well, in Mexico, so they're not protecting these journalists either. So it's interesting because AMLO is supposed to be a leftist.
Big. Wyatt Reed, good friend. I'm smiling, love this guy. Had a great time with him and Billy. Also was translating along with Fam all the whole steps of the way. And Johnny,
he's great. He's a gringo, but he speaks some good Spanish.
Fam,
I was surprised. I'm like, wow, gringos who actually speak Spanish exist. It's rare.
Almost as better than me.
I would say so. I would say he is better.
He's an awesome gringo, but this.
Give me a month in the Spanish.
But let me tell you about this. This is one of the greatest things that happened right now. I think it was amazing. I've been trying to get Keith Olbermann's attention for 3 years, and I can't do it. Wyatt got his attention. In the fantasy Nicaragua invented by the New York Times, there are no billboards or campaign posters featuring anyone else other than Daniel Ortega. Meanwhile, in real life, there are literally hundreds of opposition banners hanging throughout Managua. And you can see them right there. They're all over the place.
El gobierno del cambio means the government of change.
Yep.
So obviously it's Pedro Tremino Mendoza. There you can see that. So obviously, and then there's this one too. Gobierno del Cambio, the same party. And then that one too.
Yeah.
So
all over Managua.
PLI. That was the other party, right?
Yeah. So, but look down below what Keith Olbermann said over here. This is crazy. Is it not there?
No, it's there. Oh, it's right here.
My bad. Yeah, I'll put a link to it real quick. My bad. I assumed it would be right there. You shouldn't assume, right?
Makes an ass out of you and me.
And me, yeah. I just linked it in there, Johnny, if you want to. Oh, yeah. Now they did because he got ratioed like an idiot. I should have put your tweet in there too as well, fam, because you had a really good tweet as well.
Well, Danny Haifong got
yes.
a Twitter ban for calling him a whore. I said that how does it feel to be a whore for the empire while getting ratioed by actual journalists?
And he
What's
got...
it like to be a whore?
What's it like to be a whore for a dictator?
He got ratio though.
457 quotes, 122 likes, and he had to work to get those 122 likes. At one point, he had like 16 likes.
When I commented on it, he had 12.
Yeah.
He had 12 likes for the longest time. Nobody, and he's Keith Olbermann. I mean, he's got to be one of the most popular commentators in modern history. You liked him a while ago.
And when he was a sportscaster, but that's about it. Ben Norton, too. And big ups to Wyatt, by the way, for getting that done and getting attacked by Keith Olbermann. I'm going to try to get Keith Olbermann's attention, fam. I'm not gonna quit.
It doesn't happen when you try.
Damn.
Try.
So this was from Ben Norton. Do you want to read the Spanish one? Or you want to read the English one?
No, let's read the English because
All
we
right,
have
there.
an English audience. So the corrupt Luis Almagro sponsored a fascist coup in Bolivia in 2019. He absolutely did. Now he intends to do the same in Nicaragua. The OAS, a U.S. coup weapon, rejects the results of Nicaragua's free and sovereign elections because it will never accept a Sandinista's government. It won't accept the Sandinista's government. It won't accept the fact that this government is holding superior elections and superior help for people. They may not have all the resources and riches we have, but what they do have, they are allocating it correctly. And also the fact that they don't want relationships to happen with China and Russia. So the U.S. is, of course, once again,
Fam, who is Luis Almagro?
Luis Almagro is the, he is in charge of the OAS, or the OEA in Latin America. So if you go to his profile, we've talked about him before during Peru, remember? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he tried to do shit in Peru. He got a letter. They weren't able to do it. I think they kind of know when they can sort of push a politician, I think. When they can push a candidate, because they didn't fight as hard to have control over Peru's elections, if you guys recall.
Yeah.
Right? Like they were sort of, and we were like, wow, that's weird that they're not.
Yeah.
That they're not really involving themselves in that. So it was interesting. But yeah, he tried to meddle in those elections as well.
One of the most important pieces written this whole week was by Ben Norton as well, because there's a lot of talk. The whole kind of argument or the kind of notion was that Daniel Ortega jailed all his opposition. Well, Ben Norton put up here, there's so much propaganda trying to discredit Nicaragua's election to justify a U.S. hybrid war. The opposition figures arrested were not candidates. They called themselves pre-candidates. They were not candidates and were detained for taking millions from a foreign government, the USA, to lead a violent coup, a crime everywhere. And I've said this before when I had that interview, and I've said this to other people too as well. I said, can you imagine if you had a candidate in the United States that was funded by Iran or North Korea? Would they allow it to happen? No. So why should it be okay over here, fam?
Right, and it's not only that, it's that they refuse to disclose their money.
Exactly.
And also, a lot of the people detained in general were violating the condition that Ortega had given amnesty to people for the 2018 coup. People that had attacked and hurt physically, sometimes even murdered some of the Sandinistas, right? And they had been jailed, and he said he would give them amnesty if they would never do the same thing again to try to overthrow the government. And a lot of these people went back and did the same thing again. So, I mean, to me, he was a more compassionate leader than I would have been. I mean, to give these people amnesty, some people might have been like, no, don't do that. You're too trusting, blah, blah, blah. But like, no, he did it, and now look what's happening.
Yep. Another great reporter that we met along the way, Dennis Rogatiak. See how you do that, fam? Tiak. The OAS official is hard at work with another Bolivian-style coup and massacre. And this is from Saskatchewan News. Breaking, the OAS calls on the international community to demand an annulment of the Nicaraguans' November 7th elections for the holding of a new electoral process in a 17-page report. God bless you. Fam, let's close down the elections. Let's start it again because the OAS says so.
Why can't
they weren't
do
even
that
there
for their own elections?
Yeah.
Why couldn't we have, we couldn't even get a recount, you couldn't even get an audit without being called a right-winger, but they want to annul some other countries' elections, which, by the way, even if the elections were unfair, the United States has no, why are you meddling in people's elections? You're meddling. They talked about Russia meddling. The United States meddles in people's elections all the fucking time.
Yeah. And they always say that other people's elections suck, and that's the reason why that's the reason for regime change and why they go in there. They always point to the elections. Their elections were a sham. The dictator jailed all the opposition. They cheated on the count, that yada, yada, yada. We didn't see that there. There's no proof of that. But yet they just throw out those vague terms in Western media, and people buy it and they eat it up. Dan Kovalek, right? This is a great one here. I had the honor and pleasure of meeting with legendary FSLN Comandante Omar Cabezas, author of the famous book Fire from the Mountain. I talked to him about many things, including his feelings about Daniel Ortega and the Sandinistas revolution, coming soon to Mint Press. And Dan Kovalek, we saw him along the way. Really cool guy, really nice, friendly. But this interview right over here, I heard, is amazing to get a little history of what really went on in Nicaragua and the struggle they went through to get to where they're at today, fam.
Yeah. So look out for that interview.
Yeah, on Mint Press. Abraham Marquez, another guy we met, did really awesome out there. out in the streets, out doing some great work. A U.S. woman here in Nicaragua support Comandante Daniel Ortega because he is a man of principle and humanity, because he looks out for the poor, because he's also provided for us free education, healthcare, says Lola from Santa Julia. And that's something important over here. Nicaragua has one of the best gender equality, right, in Latin America.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And they make it a point, there's a lot of talk about the oppression of women in Latin America, not here in Nicaragua. And this is Abraham Marquez, who get a little clip right here on YouTube, on Twitter. Check it out.
Bueno, nosotras aquí las mujeres nicaragüenses apoyamos a nuestro comandante Daniel Ortega porque es un hombre con principio humilde, porque mira por la gente más pobre, porque también nos ha dado educación, nos ha dado salud, nos da conocimiento y principalmente nosotros lo adoramos porque nos da el espacio a las mujeres. Hay muchas leyes que favorecen a nosotras las mujeres para salir adelante y desarrollar.
There's a lot of laws that favor women.
Yeah, it's very important to point that out. I think they're really proud of that. And that's something great for the leftists to understand and go, oh my God. And you know what I'm saying? Nope, that's not happening over here. Benjamin Rubenstein. My man, Rubenstein? Rubenstein, a blatant lie from an imperial stenographer. Delegations of observers and journalists spread across the entire country today. Nothing is closed. No candidates were arrested. There is no in-person campaigning. Even from the FSLN due to COVID, there are 7 primary parties participating. He was on the other side of the country from where we are. And once again, he's going at the Natalie Kitroff argument as well. And we were all debunking this in real time. It was just ridiculous that they would put that out there. It's such a false lie and statement. You can tell we're on the other side of the country, and we all saw the same thing. We all said the same thing. Love you, Ben. You're the best. Ari Gutman, right? We met Ari the other day. He's a nice guy. U.S. voter turnout in 2020, 62%. Nicaragua voter turnout in 2021, 65%. 2020 was 62%, was like the highest number of voter turnout in a long, long time. They did 65% the other day, while the oppositions were pushing don't vote.
Yeah.
Some of them were pushing don't vote in Nicaragua. So, yeah, I just wanted to point that out. It's great.
Gender rank
Global
gap
rank,
index 5th. Global rank gender gap index 51st for the U.S.
Yes.
The percentage of people that feel the country is moving in the right direction, 29%. The percentage in America and in Nicaragua, the percentage of people that feel the country is in the right direction, 63.8%.
Almost 64% of the people.
The vast majority of people in Nicaragua, I would say the majority of them do support their government. Yeah. They really absolutely do. Yeah. And they let you know. They let us all know.
Ahmed Cabello, we talked about him before too as well. Yes, which was this one here? Let's check out this video we got right now.
That one?
That's fine.
So I'm Ahmed Cabello, I'm from London. I've come over here to cover the presidential elections. Now, I've witnessed a lot of stuff in Nicaragua so far. I've witnessed working class people have real pride in their status, in their country, and in their government. But since I've been at the polling station, the thing that I've noticed is a lot of enthusiasm. Now, this is described as a sham election, yet I've seen people being carried out of a wheelchair up the stairs. I've seen people with Zimmer frames walking slowly to get to the voting booth. Now ask yourself, would you go through that much effort if you didn't believe that the process counted? I simply think they wouldn't. So to me that suggests that despite what's being perpetrated in the mainstream media, that this isn't some sort of sham election, and the people here at least believe in the process.
Bam. Bam, your thoughts?
I mean, yeah, he makes a really great point. Like, why would you go through all the trouble of walking, of far, you know, people, there's a lot of elderly people that are, like I said, they're guided, they're helped out. Why would you go through all this trouble if you didn't think that your election was fair? That's why people don't vote in America, because they say that the elections are rigged and my vote doesn't count. People are apathetic in America for that reason, but people in Nicaragua are excited to vote. So.
There's another cool guy, Timothy Bood. We met this. Timo, my boy. What's ironic about the vast social media censorship is that the United States employs troll farms throughout the world to influence elections and overthrow governments. Here's Timothy Bood. This is Saskatchewan News. Check it out. This is the press conference.
And I think I should also address my own experience with having been banned from Facebook for 3 days. I was commenting on a website called Confidencial, in which they stated that the Sandinista Party had troll farms and such to spread disinformation. I think it's important to state that it's completely false. And in fact, the extreme irony of the situation is that the United States employs troll farms throughout the world to influence elections and to overthrow governments, such as the attempt to overthrow the government of Nicaragua in 2018. And they continue to use these troll farms here to attempt to influence the election. So, as an election observer, I felt compelled to speak out and to denounce the American-U.S. interference in the electoral process of Nicaragua, and for that, I was banned.
Banned, censored, shut down 4 days on Facebook. It was ridiculous. He's done some great work out there, knows a lot about the election process. Talked to us about what goes on in Venezuela, says it's the gold standard. Look forward to seeing more of what Timothy has to say, what he has to do. Rick Akan. Rick was in Bowie with us, and that's really awesome. Now, this is something that we talked about the other day. Automatic voter registration with national picture ID. Most people verified their information. Government financing of all parties. All parties count votes in every precinct and participate as results are passed to municipals, regional, and the national governments, fam.
Yeah, and let me just reemphasize that. Government financing of all parties. So the government finances all parties, and they don't get more money than that unless their own party wants to give them money. They're not allowed to have money, not allowed to receive money from foreign entities, all these, organizations,
no PACs.
That doesn't exist here.
Yeah.
So again, who is the United States to criticize a country that does government way better than them and also does elections way better?
Yeah, and the automatic voter registration with a national picture ID is good if it's in-person voting. If it's a mail-out system, right, and mail-in voting, and they send that out, and a lot of people don't participate, now they're going to have your signature on your mail-in ballot that they can just reproduce and count a vote. But when you have to show up in person, then this is just genius. This works well. So it does make sense to have automatic voter registration if it's an in-person vote, and they kind of point that out. And like we said, Johnny showed they have your picture right there. You're not going to be able to fake anything. They're going to be able to catch you, and there's all the parties in the room, so they won't let it happen. Great work, Rick. Rick went to Bilby with us. He was great. Bam, Camila Escalante, right? So let's check it out right over here. Here's a little clip from her. Nicaraguan elections. People with disabilities are provided assistance in order to guarantee their right to vote, to cast. Not casted their vote. Yeah.
We're at a different voting center now, and just as I arrived, I was speaking to one of the coordinators of this polling station, and they were telling me about the help that they provide to people with disabilities, some of the elderly voters that have come through. And just in the time I've been here, just a few minutes, we've seen about 5 people with disabilities, with walkers, canes. There's even one arriving right now, actually. And this is a 2-story facility, so when people arrive here, oftentimes they look and see where their name is listed, and if they have to vote on the 2nd floor, they are given help. Here are some images of that now.
Pero ella tiene que dar freno. Sí, espérame.
¿Cómo se llama este centro?
Es la CDR06, Mario Auxiliadora.
Okay, ¿y este barrio? ¿Cómo se llama?
El barrio, San Agustín, Guadalupe, es el barrio. Son los dos barrios que están acá.
Ya, gracias.
Yeah, so you guys saw that. I know Peru kind of did something similar, but this is better done. I mean, the way they are able to move her to where she can go. And why don't they move her, like allow her to vote in a different junta? So the reason being is because the junta is corresponding to the location where the radius. live in. So that would allow for confusion. They just don't want to deal with that, so they do that.
Yeah, I just think it's so great the way people show up. You know what I'm saying? They take pride in voting. You know what I'm saying? It's an honor for them to vote. They are all participating. They know what's at stake over here. It means a lot to them to show up. And we saw a lot of handicapped people show up at these elections to vote. It's just something, it's incredible. It just took my breath away. Yasmin Zarha, advancements of women in Nicaragua are incredible. Throughout grade school, students must take class called Dignity and Rights of Women. All government offices must be split 50-50 between men and women. This is the socialist Sandinistan government the U.S. wants to destabilize.
Right.
And fam, can you please explain to how much this means in Latin America over here?
Right. You know, in Latin America, there's some culture. There's a lot of that. Most Latin American countries where women don't have like any rights. There's constant domestic violence, abuse, and all these things. The fact that Nicaragua's government is able to do this with very little resources, and again, so people can complain about them not paying enough attention and leading with social justice issues, but when it comes to gender and equality and people receiving the same type of treatment and pay, well, there you go. There you go. They uphold women. They do whatever they can, and I think that's smart because it's also part of the way the communities are structured, especially the indigenous communities. They're very matriarchal, so it's kind of interesting to see people completely ignore that. I mean, we have a higher disparity between gender wealth here than in America than they do in Nicaragua. And how can they do it with such little resources?
Yeah. A real badass, Sergio Torres. We love him. This was written a little while ago, but I thought it was important to put it up right now. The irony of the U.S. State Department saying Nicaragua will arbitrarily seize and or search private property, including personal phones, for anti-government content. When the U.S. Customs took my phone and still haven't returned the suitcase they seized after we met with Venezuela President Nicolas Maduro in 2019. So this was at work a long time ago, fam.
Yeah, I mean, not to mention the NSA spying on Americans, looking through your phones, looking through your emails, using your smart TV with, what they've done to journalists, censoring people, taking down Facebook accounts that we're talking about Nicaragua. I mean, this is, once again, the U.S. is one of the biggest hypocrites. The U.S. government are the biggest hypocrites in the world. They do to others what they don't want done to them.
It's ridiculous. They're so hypocritical, it's beyond belief. Caleb Malpin, right? Okay, so we're talking about this. That's why I didn't read this when we did the Business Insider. I wanted to save it for Caleb and stuff like that. But our friend who invited us to come down and let us know that we might be able to put a word in with the foreign ministry, let them know who the Convo Couch is and what we did, Jardula told Insider. And the foreign ministry let us come here as observers to see the whole process. That friend, according to Jardula, was Caleb Malpin, a political commentator at RT, the Russian state broadcaster, Russian state fan. Moscow is a close ally of the Nicaraguan government. And look what Caleb put. It's great. Yeah, Putin totally called me up and said on the phone and said, ordered me to get to Yo Pasta and the Convo Couch to Nicaragua as part of a diabolical plot against the American way of life and our precious bodily fluids. Business Insider takes the cake for stupid McCarthyism on this one. I mean, it's just so fucking dumb.
Yeah, I mean, that guy's a hack.
He is a hack.
He just wants, it's just...
But once again, he's being paid to kind of twist the narrative, to put out a kind of, type of look that's really just not what it is. It really is. I want to send some special... Sorry. Okay, go ahead.
Angel Moppin, I've got bad news. Business Insider is on to us.
I got to share that out,
Until they
please.
know that Putin pays me in vodka, that Comrade Misty is Putin's puppet. Let's see what else.
I got bad news. Business Insiders onto us. They know what's going on. The diabolical plot. Let's send some special shout outs to some people that really get some tweets. They might not have a Twitter or whatnot, or they just do some great work. First off, I want to talk about Gloria from the East Coast. That's what I'm going to call her.
She did some really good writing on Alex Saab.
Amazing work. We met this woman. She went to Billy with us. I think she'll be a friend for life. I can just see that. She's just an amazing person. We're on the same wavelength right there. Just great. Fire This Time, which is another group out there too as well. Becca Mohali, Allison Bodine. They ran the two press conferences. Becca did the one in Spanish. Allison did the one in English. And Aza Rojbi? Roadby. She's great, amazing people. Caitlin's crew, Lily and Keaton, how you doing? Roger Harris, another person who spoke at the press conference, was just amazing, some fire stuff. Jerry Condon actually got arrested with Ben Rubenstein in D.C. for the Venezuela embassy, whatnot. He's the one who threw the cucumber, and the police just brought him down to the ground. He's a veteran. He's one of the Veterans for Peace. He's great. Rick Sterling and his lovely wife from Peru are amazing. Josh Higginbottom, awesome. Hung out with him. He went to Billy with us. With Declan, the Irishman, is great. Declan. And Barbara Larkham, she also went to Billy with us, another activist, great. I want to say thank you to the whole Nicaraguan Foreign Ministry, Mike Campbell and Diana Castillo, Querla Brooks, Lucia Vargas, and Tamara. They were amazing. And one last special shout out to Tara Batson from Code Pink, as well as one of our great friends over here, one of our guides, Gerardo Alvarez. These people are awesome. They put this whole thing together. They made these things happen. They gave us total access to what we wanted to see, and I can't thank them enough.
And just real quick, guys, before we head out, I wanted to go over the numbers because Daniel Ortega did win, you know, and we live streamed his celebration event. We were there. It was really awesome. Just the love that the people of Nicaragua have for their government is just so infectious. They were just singing songs, give peace a chance. It was amazing. But that was, those were the numbers before, and with 97% reporting. And now the numbers are even more set. I believe, I think I put the final tally in the next one. Should be there. There it is. There's a picture. There's a picture in the folder. And I just want to show you guys that the total tally. It's all the way at the bottom. And it says FSLN and 2,093,834 votes. And you can see that's the equivalent of 75.87%, so it went up. Yeah. And then you can see the other parties. So either they cheated big time or... Yeah. I mean, look at how the percentages are, right? The PLI, the APRE, the ALN, the CCN. I mean, you guys can see the totals. Those are big margins. They're not. It's not close. It's not. You know, how can you say this election was not valid? Yeah, it was a fair election and stuff like that. You know, and we talked to the people here. Their lives have changed so much in the last 15 years. With the 3 terms for Daniel Ortega, the Sandinistas have brought them electricity, roads, have fought the empire. It's been great. This is one of the first post-electoral reports on the results, and this is Dennis the Menace over here. I call him because he's getting right in their face. Rogatiak, check it out, a little quick video he put up. This was at the Celebration Fam where they're singing all these songs, just a lovely demonstration. Yeah, well, let's read it. It's in Spanish, right? Well, here, I put it in English right there. Yeah, so the first post-electoral report on the results, the event commemorating the anniversary of the assassination of Commander Carlos Fonseca and the declarations of governments of the United States and the European Union. You can just play it while we talk. Daniel Ortega went over the entire history of the United States meddling in the Nicaraguan government. Basically, he gave a history lesson when he spoke, and I was told that he often does that. And then, you know, he talked about the Yankees and how he called them hijos de perro. And he is not usually one to curse, but he did curse that day. He was talking about the sanctions and how, you know, these people that are in prison son vendepatria, which means that they sold out to another country. They're not Nicaraguans anymore. So he was really on fire, and he was talking about all these things. Yeah. So it's in Spanish. I thought it was in Spanish. Is it in? Buenos días a todos. Yeah. So and I just wanted to show. I had a tweet thread that has all the, you know, all the dancing and all the happiness from the Nicaraguan people the night Daniel Ortega. Yeah, you got to read it. It says, since imperialist goons and propagandists continue their lies. Here's a thread of all the videos showing all the joy from the Nicaraguan people last night as Daniel Ortega was reelected via a fair process, debunking their lies and attempts to classify this election as fraudulent.
There was a moment too that was great. You could see him coming down, and he goes on, he gets on the stage, and he's singing right there. They are singing together. But right before this moment, he was singing, and Daniel Ortega put his arms on him. The singer didn't know he was on stage. He kept on singing, and then all of a sudden he turns around like, "Who's there?" And he was like, he just stops and he pauses, and he can't believe that Daniel Ortega was there, and he put his arms around him. It was so amazing. The crowd went wild. I have that video somewhere. I'll make sure I put it up. It was just fantastic to see that. He couldn't believe it. He turned around and was like, "Oh, it's Daniel Ortega putting his arms around me."
Yeah, I mean, they had a massive
fantastic.
party, people just dancing and singing. So you guys get the picture.
People love him. The young people will love him. They were lining up. He was walking through the crowd. You know, he had his guards there, but nothing like we would see. Like you could see, he gets out there. You know, and I believe that Max asked him. Max Blumenthal said, "Why didn't you travel without this crazy caravan and all this special forces? It seems like your security is very low." And he says, "You know, the people of Nicaragua will protect me." He understands the relationship they have with them. I mean, I'm not saying that he's not walking around with anybody, but the United States Secret Service would not let a president do what he did because they know he'd be gone in 2 seconds. You know what I'm saying?
I know. I was being sarcastic.
They were going crazy. I got footage of everybody just waving flags, singing.
Yeah, you can clearly see people are excited.
Yeah. And the last tweet of the night right now, I just want to point this out because a lot of people, how can he get 75% of the vote? This is his 4th consecutive term. That's ridiculous. If any U.S. president, fam, did what Daniel Ortega has done for his people, they would get elected for 10 consecutive terms. Instead, we get presidents who represent corporations while the people are left out in the cold, broke, homeless, and hungry, and that's just a fact.
That's a pasta tweet.
That's a pasta tweet. I've been out here for 6 days now, 5-6 days. I've seen 2 homeless people. 2 homeless people, right? In California, where we live, we have 60,000 homeless people in the streets, ladies and gentlemen. You know, it's time to start waking up and seeing what's going on around us in the world and see what's going on around the United States. We have a fraudulent government that's been there president after president. They're not representing the people, they're representing corporations, the military-industrial complex, and such. I mean, it's just terrible. And what Daniel Ortega has done for his people, I'm not surprised that he got 75% of the vote. I wouldn't be surprised if he got 80% of the vote. He's a champion of the people, fam.
Champion of the people. Well, we got any super rays to read, and then we'll get on out
I
of here.
think we do have a couple really quick. I'm so sorry. I'll get rid of them. And let me put this up. Daniel. Yes, we do. Okay, right here. Kim Schwari, Kate, fam.
Nice to see you.
Help me here. Who backs the Mexican Reforma? Why are the writers for Reforma claiming that Ortega is a dictator who rules with an iron fist? Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know why they're claiming that. That's strange. Yeah. I'll look into it though. Yeah, I don't know. That's what I was saying. Like, this is weird that they're doing that. They're playing ball with the world, with NATO. Like, that's what. Remember when we covered Castillo at the what was it, conference? Where he started speaking, and I was like a little bit like, oh, he's kind of saying some talking points about the Great Reset, sort of, and I'm like, I'm a little bit worried about that. Well, that's kind of why. Like, I feel like there's a lot of infiltration, there's a lot of power in some of these governments that, you know, they co-opt the power. They don't allow these presidents to rule by and for the people.
Well, also too, fam, AMLO's brand new there. You know, the Mexican intelligence apparatus and the Mexican deep state and the Mexican, they've been there for a long, long time. Well, I'm going to say the Mexican intelligence apparatus, okay, they've been there for a long time. And they've been working with the United States government for many, many years. So it's going to be hard to just go in there, wave a wand, and get rid of them. And Pedro Castillo might be facing the same type of kind of forces. And last one, Sarah Wagner, Fee's Putin impression, too much, fam. Why don't you say goodbye to the audience with your Putin impression?
No, I don't do tricks. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. We appreciate you. And we'll be back soon. We're going to have to live stream often, even on the road.
It's tough, though, when we're on the road, but we will do the best we can to get there and stuff like that. It's been an amazing trip. Thank you guys so much for watching. Pasta Jardula.
Convo out.
Jonny Tsu.